I've often joked that mapping out characters in a book is like one of those FBI mob trial charts. They have the boss, the underboss, the captains, and so forth. When you're mapping out a series, who's going to fall in love with who, etc., like Blue Heron, for instance, how does that process work for you?
I wish I was organized enough to have the mafia board and the FBI strings and everything. Um, for me, writing is I do like to plan a book as much as I can, but stuff like relationships and stuff that's very organic, is it right for this character to have a sister? How much younger should she be? Why? Why are there sisters and no brothers? That kind of thing. And who gets to be important in the story? Like if you're going to write a big family, everybody can't be equally important. So sometimes I will be writing and I'll say, you know what, I'm just going to kill off the brother. There's no point for her to have a brother, and I'll take him out. Or I'll say, if she had a sister, then, they could like reflect off each other. I'm very like book smart and not visually smart. And like my husband had to set up the light that I use for these interviews. I always say like a dog could put something together faster than I could. But if I can read it, I learn it. So I'll have like the Mirabelli family, and hear the parents and the children and the first wife and, all that stuff and keep it straight that way.
From the name, same like Emmeline, do they tell you from there more or less where they're going to go on the page once you start writing them?
She was a throwaway character in that Levi's the chief of police and he has some support staff. And one of them is named Emmeline. For me, it was like an old lady's name. And I originally pictured her older. And originally, when I was thinking about this series, and this is something that happens to just about every author I know, you have a plan for it and then it doesn't work out. Like the characters resist you. And I know they're not real, but originally I was going to have Jack and Colleen get together. And they never do. They flirt with each other, especially Colleen, but it just wasn't right. And I was like, well, now that I've written 2 books, I've kind of dug myself into a hole and I have to write Jack's story, but I don't know who I'm going to put him with. And so I actually looked at my list of every character in Manningsport and I saw Emmeline and I'm like, I barely remembered her. I went back to The Best Man and I saw what did I say about her? And I say nothing about her age, only that she's kind of sassy mouthed towards Levi and thinks she'd make a better cop than the other person they have in the department. And I was like, Emmeline, she's like been here under my nose all along. And I knew that she lived across the green near the library because Levi walks her home one night. So I had only those 2 facts on her. And all of a sudden, like she was my girl. Sometimes it's very organic like that. And a whole history will just blossom over why does she live there and what was her background like and what are like the demons from her past and why would Jack go for her. And whenever I write a relationship story, I always make sure I ask 2 questions. Why are they perfect for each other and why are they like toxic for each other? Because they have to be both in order for it to be interesting, I think.
You've always been such an artist at bringing life to the small town on the page. Say Manningsport as an example. Tell us a bit about that process in action.
I love writing small towns because that's where I grew up and that's where I live now. And I knew I wanted to do a series and I wanted to base it around a family business. I had done a restaurant, I had done a bakery. So like my first 2 loves were taken, right? And then I thought like maybe I could do a winery, but not like the California, very posh, billionaire kind of wineries. I wanted to do a family run thing. And so I learned that in upstate New York, there's a place called the Finger Lakes. I never knew about them before this. And they're called the Finger Lakes because they look like a finger, series of lakes all in a row. And so I went up there with my husband for a long weekend and I was telling him my idea for the story. And basically everything up there is a vineyard. And I was saying, I want this old place that's been around for generations, like post and beam. And we'd driving past a barn, and I'm like that place. And so we stopped there, and we were actually, I had contacted the Chamber of Commerce to say, I'm an author. I'm going to set a book series up here. Can you give me any hints about where to go, where to stay? And they were really helpful. And then we were just tooling around. A lot of the towns out there are just drive-through towns, you know, like you have the downtown and then you just keep driving to the next town. We came upon the town of Hammondsport, Maine, which is a postage stamp of a town with like 700 people in it. And it's based around a green. And I loved it. I said, this is like walking into my book to my husband. You know, it's like, this is what I imagined. There's the bar, there's the apartment building, there's the library. You know, it was all so perfect. And actually, a lot of readers have gone there because they, you know, they want to see where Blue Heron was set, and they'll go to the vineyard that I based the Blue Heron vineyard on and visit. And the owners get such a kick when they're like, we read Kristan's book. Did you know that you're in a book? And they do. They were very wonderful to me, telling me about wine and the history of the land and how it's made, and some of the troubles and difficulties of basically being a farmer who makes wine.
That richness of detail must be so important.
You know, Vermont is very different from Maine, and please don't get them confused. And how people spend their time, what it's like to live in this place. A lot of my characters are lifers in their towns. You know, they've never lived anywhere else, or they've come back. And so it's not just what the place looks like, but it's, you know, it's what do you do for fun here? And what elements do I want to use? I want to use that building. That's a really cool building. And those lions in front of the library. And also how cold it is up here, you know, and things like that. So it is a really important part of my research, and it's definitely the most fun to research setting. The other part of research is spent either interviewing people who have lived certain experiences or reading about it on the good old internet, buying books about subjects, you know, really immersing myself in that. If it's an experience that I personally haven't had, I really want to get it right. And I don't always, but I think I come pretty close.